In the name of the Holy and Undivided Trinity, one God. Amen. Please be seated. The church we attended growing up had an annual service very similar to this one, called the Longest Night. We would attend on and off over the years beside our friends, sitting in the large space with candles, music, prayers, and tears. Years passed, and my mom, sister, and I sat in the church, huddled together during this service. The twinkle of Christmas lights, only serving as distractions, wanting to do anything but acknowledge the reality of our lives in that tender moment. That year, we entered the longest night of our lives. The longest night service was very much like this, where we create a brave space, inviting vulnerability away from the pressures of performative kindness and the masks that we wear, holding time for even a moment of solace. It's during that service that reality broke open, that time stood still for us to simply be. There were no ringing bells or twinkling lights that could serve as distractions anymore, only candles of remembrance. The service seemed to last a lifetime. And then came time for us to stand up and go on our way as the day goes on, and somehow we do too. It's no secret that this time of year brings a particular sting for those who live with recent or anticipatory grief. The loss of someone we love, the loss of security and familiarity, of friends and community, of jobs or a sense of purpose. Time marches on, even when we don't want it to. Our longest night can seem like it lasts forever, and sometimes we push it off, having to put on the mask of everything is fine. Or by consoling those around us about our own losses and becoming incapacitated by the kindness that we offer to others as some kind of placating comfort, while unable to process our own feelings and the immensity of our own reality that has changed forever. We enter this time of year where the longest night drags on, and we are left with quietness and brokenness of hearts. And so we gather together to hold space, to name and acknowledge that this time of year can be and is difficult and complicated, and that the magic of the season is expected regardless of what we feel. Our reality is so much more complicated. The magic and wonder are dulled by memories and tragedy. We are knocked down by waves of uncertainty. The smallest thing can trigger a visceral response because the light of the world seems so far away. God seems so far away. And so, what do we do? When we are in the longest night, what do we do? When the lights of the season are twinkling and the magic swirls in the air, how do we make it through that longest night? How do we keep going? If the answer were easy, the world would be a very different place. We wouldn't have to console each other because of our loss. We wouldn't have to put on a mask of performative joy and push through the pieces of our broken hearts. We wouldn't have to hold space and time in what should be the happiest season of the year, expecting love to come down at Christmas with lights all aglow. it would be easier to move on, to not pay attention at all to how we feel, to simply put away the tears and the heartbreak, the time spent overthinking what has happened, the decisions made, the people we miss, the places we have left, the insecurities and the possibilities of the future. Yet here we are, seeking hope or solace or a moment away from the hustle of the world. We find hope in Zechariah's words. We hear a proclamation of the glory of God with us and the hope of the prophet to come. Zechariah found his voice and proclaimed God's faithfulness and the role his son, John, would play in preparing the way for Christ to come into the world, preparing for the light to enter this world, and for love to come down and dwell with us. In the longest night of our lives, we lose our voices. We lose our ability to speak, even to breathe. The weight of our grief, the loss of what is familiar, of security and safety, pulling us into what feels like an abundant darkness. We can't seem to prepare the way, only to preserve what little we have in the night that seems to last forever, because self-preservation is our best option. We seek out answers. We seek an end to these feelings. We want our reality to change. As my mom and my sister and I sat in the church on that night so many years ago, we wanted our feelings to abandon us, our tears to cease, and to feel like we did in the time before. We wanted God to come down and assure us that everything will be okay. But we can't go back, nor can we stay where we are as much as we want to. We can never wish time away, and when we are paralyzed by the long night with no daylight in sight, we can't even prepare for what is to come. But the presence of God is with us, through and through. And so we breathe and we feel. We live into the brave space of a blue Christmas. We let the tears fall and the pieces of our hearts spill over. We spend this time dwelling in the present hope of community, the loving kindness of God, and the expectation of the light that we know will come, even if we are unable to imagine it right now. And we are able to finally exhale, knowing that our merciful and loving God holds us, knowing that we are beloved in all of our grief and our sorrow, in our joy and our thanksgiving, with our messy realities and complicated long nights, waiting for daylight to break. In that church, so many years ago, my mom, my sister, and I sat huddled together because despite it all, the cacophony of emotions, the masks we wear, the immense feeling of loss and uncertainty, despite everything that we wanted to forget and time we wanted to wish away, we could be there. We could be present just as we are now, in the presence of hope and of love and of peace, and the knowledge that each and every one of us is beloved just as we are and just as we will be forever. Amen.